Hello to all our viewers and listeners. Users of long pips often ask which long pips are the most effective. It's a good question, and I used to wonder the same thing myself. I wanted to buy the best pips and go on to beat everyone. But it turned out that this question has several nuances that make it impossible to answer it in such a straightforward way. So let's dive in and see if we can find a useful answer and some specific pips options for you. Here's the first nuance. If certain long pips were the most effective and others less effective, I'm sure we'd see the following: all long pips players would be using the most effective long pips and enjoying the game. All the other pips would be unnecessary, and they'd die out. We'd only have one long pips option left on the planet, like in her Neptune. It would be so popular that counterfeits would emerge, and then buyers would have a different problem, finding an original. In this scenario, our question would be the same. But instead of choosing between different models of pips, we'd just be trying to find the original version of that pips. And while we're creating helpful and entertaining videos, visit the TT Maximum store more often for shopping. That's the best way to thank us for our videos. Speaking of in her Neptune, I mentioned it for a reason. These pips have been around for years, and they'll likely be made for years to come because they're quite popular. Players consistently buy them, which means they like them. So I can recommend them as one of the best options, but keep in mind that it's just one good option, not the only best one. Right now, there are lots of different long pips, and different players use different types of long pips. Some are more popular, others less so. Even among the most popular pips, there's a lot of variety, which shows that the question, which long pips are the most effective, doesn't have a straightforward answer. Why is that question flawed? Effectiveness doesn't exist in isolation. It always relates to a certain task or parameter. For example, a shovel is an effective tool for digging compared to a hammer or rake. But for driving nails, the shovel isn't effective, and for gathering something into a pile, the rake is better than the hammer. In other words, effectiveness implies the context of what specifically is needed. Any long pips can be effective or ineffective depending on specific needs. For example, cost effectiveness. For advanced players who wear down their rubbers quickly and need frequent replacements, cost might matter. If they need a new rubber every month, a $30 rubber will be far less cost-effective than a $12 one if they last the same time. So, when we talk about the effectiveness of long pips, we need to clarify what kind of effectiveness is needed. For example, if I play defense in the backcourt and mostly chop, then I need pips that are effective for chopping from a distance. If I mostly block at the table, then I need effectiveness for blocking. Or maybe I often hit with long pips, or I focus on generating tricky spin in pushing and defense, and so on. In a game, players generally use multiple techniques rather than just one. Some techniques might be used more frequently, others less so. For instance, I might chop often and like to hit with the pips when I get a suitable ball. Or I often block and hit, but rarely chop. You get the idea. Additionally, effectiveness depends on who's holding the racket with the pips. For example, pips can be effective in one player's hands, but not in another's because the players have different skill levels. One might have better technique and use the pips effectively, while another might big struggle. Also, long pips effectiveness depends on the blade being used, as any rubber will perform differently depending on the blade. The same pips can perform well on one blade and even better on another with different properties. Or maybe worse. So the same pips can vary in effectiveness in different hands and on different blades. The compatibility of pips with a blade also matters. A setup might not play well for unclear reasons. Why did I overload your mind with all this information? My point is that the effectiveness of an item in the real world requires clarification about what tasks and conditions it's intended for. Different tasks suit different pips. Based on this, you should decide what racket parameters you need with long pips. Do you want it fast, slow, or medium? Soft or hard? What level of friction do you prefer? Do you want pips with a sponge or without? If with, what thickness? Or perhaps a dampening sponge for maximum control? Or maybe control isn't your priority. Do you like a sandwich with sausage, or maybe chips with bacon? You see, there are many aspects to consider. Maybe you're thinking, guys, my head is spinning from all this information. Just tell me some highly effective pips I can buy and play with. Okay, for a quick recommendation, here are a few options: Inher Neptune, or Inher Ching, or the excellent 955 series. There are standard 955, 955 blue, 955 green, and 955 euro, all of which differ in color and playing characteristics. And if you like frictionless pips, check out the Doway Saviga 77 Golden Monster OX. These are modern long pips with no friction that we've tested and sold a lot, with many satisfied customer reviews. You can find links to these pips below the video. By the way, while I'm giving you all this pipology, please give a like and subscribe. Likes won't click themselves. Of course, there are other great pips options too, but if I list them all, it could get confusing and make the choice harder for you. Even the ones I mentioned might not suit you because of personal preference. They might be too fast or too slow for your liking. So consider all the factors mentioned when choosing pips. If you're struggling to find the most effective pips for yourself, feel free to contact our store. We'll ask the right questions and help you make an easy choice. That's all for now. I could give you more details, but it might just confuse you more. Better to relax, have some tea or coffee, put on some socks, and confidently choose pips from our store. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments below.